had no idea who I was even without that in my life, because it defined me. And then winning the Olympics defined me even more. Everybody else was defining me for that one thing. On my very best event, the uneven bars, I fell flat on my face. And I remember laying there on that mat, face first, like face first, thinking first, why am I down here? It allowed me to be uncomfortable, and it allowed me to grow, and it allowed me to figure out who Nastia was without Nastia Liukin, the Olympic gymnast. Sometimes balance is coming from a gymnast, I guess maybe ironic, but one of my biggest mentors was Kobe, and I remember him telling me, life is like the infinite balance beam. You just have to be so aware of like where you are. If work is great, then maybe like your personal life, family, whatever is shit. And he's like, and if that is great, then work is shit. Tried my whole life to have like everything be like so perfectly like balanced. And sometimes that's not attainable.
Welcome to More to Say. I'm Amber Vinsbox, founder of the $2 billion creator commerce platform, LTK. I've spent the last 14 years pioneering the creator economy, and on this podcast, I'm giving you direct access to the knowledge and perspectives of some of today's most influential people. I want you to stay ahead of the curve, so pull up a seat because we are just getting started. I am absolutely thrilled that you chose to listen to this episode of More to Say because you're about to hear some highly applicable wisdom from an American sports icon. Last month, I had the opportunity to sit down with Nastia Liukin at the LTK Active conference in LA. I grew up watching Nastia perform, and my guess is that you've heard of her. Maybe you're one of the millions of people who follow her online. She's an Olympic gymnast who won 5 medals at the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, including the coveted all-round gold medal. Since retiring from the sport, she has been the lead female gymnastics analyst with NBC Olympics and launched her creator business, which has led to collaborations with world-leading brands and retailers. In this episode, you'll hear about Nastia's journey to becoming a 5-time Olympic medalist, how she tackled life after the Olympics, her journey to becoming a successful digital creator, and how she defines her own personal style and what she's working on today just for you. And of course, you don't want to miss her iconic looks that are sure to be a hit on her LTK shop.
Well, Nastia, welcome to LTK Active and to More to Say.
Thank you. No pressure. Starting with people can't see the video on the podcast, but didn't bring me back to the Olympics at all.
Okay, you are a 5-time Olympic medalist. It's really moving, incredible. I love watching this video every single time just to see your work. It just seems honestly like superhuman. Tell us a little bit about the journey to get to that point.
It feels like a little bit of an out-of-body experience, to be honest. Like watching videos now, I think the same thing. Like, how did I do some of that? But I think it was, you know, when people ask how long it took me to get to the Olympics, like it started from day one. Both my parents were actually gymnasts, and so my dad competed at the '88 Olympic Games, won 2 gold and 2 silver medals. My mom was a rhythmic gymnast and world champion, and I'm the only child. So I had like some decent genes, I guess. They really didn't want me to do gymnastics because they knew how hard it was, and they didn't want me to have to face the pressures that I ended up facing, just given, you know, my dad was actually my coach as well. And I think for them, their biggest thing was for me to find something that I loved, something that made me happy, something that I was passionate about. And unfortunately for them, it was gymnastics. And so they always said, like, we will support you, help you in any way possible, but we will never push you to doing gymnastics. Like, it has to be your thing and your journey. The only time my mom, actually, not even my dad, my mom made me, like, pushed me was after a bad day. And there were times, of course, we all have bad days, no matter what industry, no matter what sport, whatever job, relationships, everything. And I remember coming home after a bad day and I would say, like, I want to quit. This is too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And she would say that's fine. You can quit, but not today. You have to go back to the gym the next day, and the next day. So you have just one good day, and then you can quit. And so sometimes it would take me a few days or maybe the next day, and I would come home, and moms obviously know best before you even have to say anything. And she would say, okay, now you can quit. We'll enroll you back into public school, find something else that you want to do. And I would say, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said I wanted to quit. And so like the moral of that story, and it's the biggest lesson that I've kept with me because it applies across the board, is you can never quit on a bad day. And so I think like looking back at that, that's, yes, the moments of winning, I'm proud of them, right? But it's the obstacles that we all have to face that you push through. I feel like to me, kind of like those were the defining moments for me.
I'm definitely taking that home for myself, for my family, for my children. Don't quit on a bad day. What do you feel like is the most valuable lesson that you learned from your parents? It seems like you learned a lot, obviously, just by what their coaching, what they told you, but a lot by doing as well.
Yeah, I think so much, like so many things. I think for them, they instilled a lot of just values that, you know, my dad would always say, like, doesn't matter how many Olympic medals you win or don't win. Like, what matters is the way that you treat people and the way that you show up for people, the way people aren't going to remember that. Like, a medal count is great in the moment, and it's something that I'm proud of, but my medals are wrapped in a ball at my parents' house in a safe. Like, so I didn't grow up. I never saw my dad's Olympic medals until 2 weeks before my Olympics. And that was just like, I didn't realize at the time, but if you walked into like to my childhood house or I guess teenage house that they still live in, like you would never know who lived there. And it's not because like we're not proud of it, but it was just something that we never felt the need to like showcase. It was something that we did and we had, and like we not like put it behind us, but it was just looking back at it now, I think that's why I never felt the pressure. Because like people ask me, don't you feel like you have so much to live up to? And I was like, no, it's like so cool that my parents were so successful. I want to grow up to be like them. As opposed to, oh gosh, like if you don't do that as the daughter of 2 world Olympic champions, like you're going to be worthless. And that is something that I like really appreciate. And again, I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it was definitely something that I remember very clearly.
You've had now several really, I guess, highly successful chapters of your life. And I want to start with the one up through kind of the Olympics in 2008. You mentioned that your parents threatened to put you back in public school.
So nothing against public school, by the way.
No, I get it. I'm assuming that's because you were, instead of going to public school, you were being homeschooled and focused on your craft.
I wasn't homeschooled either. Nothing against homeschooling either. I went to a private school, but it was basically, we trained 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I trained 8 to 12 in the morning, went to school 12:30 to 3, trained again 4 to 7, did it all over again Monday through Saturday. And so Sunday was my day off. And I started that in 5th grade. So however old you are in 5th grade. Like 10, 11, 10, until I retired at 23. So that was a lot of years of doing that like same repetitive schedule every single day, to the point where I had no idea who I was even without that in my life, because it defined me. And then winning the Olympics defined me even more. It wasn't now just like something that I let myself define myself for, but it was everybody else was defining me for that one thing.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a quick break because I want to again share with you some of the things that I've been loving lately. As you guys know, I've been on a health journey for the last year and really just discovering so much more about what I'm putting in and on my body. And I've been trying to make really small improvements to my health so that over time, I'm really just chipping away at products that are in my household or that I'm using that might have been more toxic than I knew. So I want to start out by telling you guys about a product that my friend Kit told me about. This is called the Risewell toothpaste. This is a mineral toothpaste. They have an adult version and a kid version. It's safe to swallow. It's made in the USA. It does not have fluoride, which, by the way, I am not a dentist. I am not a doctor. I am not trying to act like one. But if you look up online, fluoride actually doesn't have a ton of great benefits, and it has a lot of toxic benefits from what I understand and what I've read. So this toothpaste has no toxic ingredients, and the primary benefit of using a hydroxyapatite toothpaste like this one is that it remineralizes your tooth enamel. So fluoride can also defend against kind of tooth decay, but it doesn't have the calcium and phosphate that helps to remineralize your teeth. This is a toothpaste that I've started using on my second tube now. I have it for my kids. Each one of them have their own little bottle. It tastes much more, I would describe it as bland than your like typical toothpaste, but I'm excited to be switching to this product. And by the way, I heard that this is actually like hydroxyapatite is what people have used in Japan for a very long time to brush their teeth. So I'm sharing this with you here today. The other small change that I made in my life is actually switching to primarily pure deodorant. I'm using the charcoal. What I love about this one is that A, it does work. And second, when you look at the ingredients on the back of the bottle, these are all ingredients that I would actually put in my mouth. So think about like coconut oil or, tallow from grass-fed cows. By the way, in my area, people put tallow on their face. When my kids get sunburns, I put it on their face. Or if I need a really hydrating face mask, I actually use one that a woman in town made for me. It has, charcoal, essential oils, eucalyptus, peppermint, rosemary, vitamin E. These are all things you want in and on your body. And I feel really good about putting this on mine. So Baxter and I have both switched to the primarily pure. Something else I love about both of these is I actually have them on subscribe. So they're just showing up at our house. One less thing I have to think about. I hope you enjoy them as well. I am not portraying myself to be the expert in toxins in your household. I am absolutely new to this world, but these are two small changes that I've made in my life that I think will make a big difference.
So I think a lot of people can identify with a major life transition. There's so many things that happen in the natural course of our lives where it feels like maybe a door has closed or we're transitioning onto maybe even an expanded experience of life. What was that like for you when you decided to retire from gymnastics officially and then look to your next step?
Well, so I was quote unquote old at 18 years old at the Olympics over the hill. And so it's changed a lot, which I'm like grateful for the sport and just like for the world. But 18, was considered older, and so I didn't really see. It's a lot on the body, any sport, but gymnastics especially, and because you start so young, and so I never really thought I would. You can't really do it for the rest of your life essentially, and so I kind of knew that the timing. I did try to make my second Olympic team. And so this time going into the Olympic trials, I'm now the reigning Olympic all-around champion. So a little bit more pressure, a little bit more expectations, both from everybody else, but also myself. And on my very best event, the uneven bars, I fell flat on my face. You can watch it on YouTube. And I remember laying there on that mat, face first, face first, thinking first, why am I down here? I should be finishing my routine. And then immediately just being embarrassed, mortified. I wanted to crawl underneath the podium, and then feeling like I had disappointed so many people, my dad included, even though they weren't disappointed. But in that moment, it all happened so fast. And then thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make the Olympic team now. How does the reigning Olympic all-around champion not fail to qualify to make the team, let alone win again? And I had 30 seconds. This all happened within 30 seconds because you have 30 seconds to get back on the bar and finish your routine, or else you get a 0. And the dad instinct immediately kicked in. He was no longer my coach. He was like, let's just be done. Let's just go. Let's be safe. He just wanted me to be done because it is a dangerous sport. And he was like, we've almost made it without any major injury. And I said, no. You've always taught me no matter what happens, I always have to finish what I've started. Knowing that routine didn't matter anymore, but for me it did. And so I got back up, finished my routine, landed on my feet on my dismount, and for the very first time in my entire life and career, I had a standing ovation for the worst routine of my entire life and career. And for me, that truly was the defining moment. When I won the Olympics and had a gold medal around my neck, sure, people were clapping and cheering, but nobody was standing on their feet. But when I fell on my face in front of 20,000 people and millions watching back at home, I got back up and I finished. 20,000 people stood to their feet. And that made me realize that we will never be defined by any accomplishment, any job title, any salary, any relationship, any of those things. They don't define who we are. It's something that we do. And not that anybody taught me that. It wasn't something that my parents said, but for me, I truly felt until that moment that I was only going to be loved, supported, whatever, if I was the best. But if I wasn't the best and I didn't win the gold medal, then nobody would want to support me. And so the moment that I had there made me realize the complete opposite, in that, finding something that you love to do, having a passion, the journey, all of that truly is most important. It's not about the outcome. And that failures, I don't believe in failures. Like, I think that I learned from that. Sure, it was a mistake, but I think that became the defining moment in my entire life. Had I not fallen on my face, and it happens literally like it did for me, or figuratively for some of us in life. And so it's, how do you pick yourself up and keep going? And how do you learn from that? So it hopefully never happens again.
Those are the relatable moments that everyone is looking for a hero. And it's hard to feel like you can aspire to be Nastia Liukin, but you can aspire to get back up. And it's been really, I grew up watching you. And then your fame has only grown, actually, in my mind, like post-Olympics. Like, social media didn't exist when you were in the Olympics.
Which makes me feel so old, by the way. But I'm like, I didn't even have an Instagram. I had a Facebook, but I had to lie because it was when you had to have like a school email. And I went to a private school that didn't have emails. Not proud that I had to lie about it, but I wanted to get on Facebook. And so, yeah, I'm very thankful I didn't have social media then, because I truly don't know how these girls are last time at Olympic trials, mid-competition, Simone is DMing me to replying to my outfit as she's on the competition floor. And I'm like, get off your phone, focus. And, I think growing up with it, maybe it's different, but for me, my dad had this rule. Obviously I could do interviews, but I give the interviews, but I wasn't allowed to read the interview until after the competition, regardless of if it was positive or negative, because either way, it's going to affect you. If it's negative, your self-confidence is just going to be shot. And if it's positive, overly confident is not good either. And so I don't know how they do it with social, but yes, I feel since the Olympics, it has been obviously an incredible way for everybody and for every industry. And I think really being able to connect. And, we talked about this earlier, but when I first started, and then it wasn't necessarily even about building this, a community, an engaged community. It was about, it was show and tell. It was basically, here's my life. And you're posting little clips and photos of your life. And then, it's obviously shifted so much over the years. And, it allows everybody to kind of create their own path and their own careers. And, it's incredible what I feel like it's done for so many people, across different industries.
Okay, so as far back as Marcus Aurelius, I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'll give you the highlight version, which is basically, even back then, he was talking about don't give people rent-free space in your mind. And when I think about these articles and how it can actually totally mess with you, and for all of us, with brands that are in the market, an editor can take a position or position your brand in a certain way. It can be highly distracting. Yeah. He talks about how you're your own worst enemy when you give people rent-free space like that versus focusing on moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, you did move forward beyond Facebook into launching your social media.
I got an email account.
We got you an email. We got you in. Mark checked you off the list. Tell us a little bit about launching your digital community.
Yeah, I think it's been a learning lesson, because again, growing up in the gym 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I'm glad activewear and athleisure is so popular now, because that's what I wore every single day. And leotards and now bodysuits, it's scrunchies are back. It's all just it feels like I'm a child again, which is great. But I think that was something that I don't know if I struggled with, but when I was competing, I was always super stoic. That's how I focused. I was not the bubbly type, and a lot of my teammates were. And so when you're next to each other, you are perceived as one way, and then somebody else is perceived the other way. And we laugh about this all the time now, but I think I struggled with that because it felt like nobody actually knew the real me. And I like to think about it both ways. I think there's something to not giving everything to the world. But at the same time, people would come up to me and say, oh, you're actually nice. And I was like, what? What is happening? Just because I didn't smile when I was on a 4-inch wide balance beam at the Olympic Games? I was focused. So I think with social, it started to allow, to, I guess, give little glimpses of yourself or your life or whatnot. But then we talked about this too, but growing up as a perfectionist in a sport that you almost had to be this way, you know, if you're going to, for me, it's, if you're going to do something, do it well. Like, why half-ass it? Sorry. Like, I don't know. I feel like if it was like a warm-up turn at the Olympics, like, sure, that's not your Olympic routine, but like the judges are watching. Like, they're judging you in training, like already looking for that mistake that you had in training, that like, you can't say that that training doesn't count. It counts every single time you do anything. And so that's the way I've like kind of done social too. Like, even an Instagram story or something, if there's like a pair of socks on the floor, like, I'm like, oh God, I have to move that. And you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as being a perfectionist and like trying to obtain this perfect life. Sure, I get that. But for me, it's like, if I'm going to do it well. And so it's this constant, like almost battle of being raw and real and authentic. And yes, there absolutely, I agree. But then it's still that like struggle of putting in the effort, or like not putting in less effort, I guess, which sounds even silly to say because like, that's what it feels like at times. So yeah, it's a constant like balance, I think.
After your career, you went on to go to school in New York. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that and then your transition to entrepreneurship.
Moving to New York was probably the best thing that I ever did. It was 7 years after I graduated high school. And my dad always said, like when I was growing up, promise me one thing. And I was like, sure, like, you know, whatever you say. And he said, you know, promise me at some point you're going to go to school and graduate. And I was like, okay. And he instilled like the importance of that because he said, you never know how far your gymnastics career is going to take you, but an education will stick with you for the rest of your life. And so I was like, okay. And of course, you know, after the Olympics, like life happened and like it kind of got a little crazy. And so I had it in the back of my mind that I did want to go at some point. And so right after I fell on my face and like that door was kind of like, you know, shut. I moved to New York and I started school at NYU and I didn't know a single person. I grew up in Texas. I started January semester, 8 a.m. Monday calculus class. I had not been in school in 7 years. I'm looking at my pink graphic calculator thinking, what is this?
Of course it's pink.
Of course it's pink, yeah. And it was the hardest transition because it just felt like, first of all, I didn't belong. I was so much older than everybody. And I never really had to like make friends. All my friends were my teammates. And so I spent the whole entire day with them all the time. So having to navigate so many different things at once. And then nobody, like, I chose this on purpose because I knew I needed to just throw myself into something where like nobody cared who you were, what you did, what your past is, none of that, because like everybody's done something. And in life in general, but like especially I felt like in New York. And it was the hardest but like greatest transition that I possibly could have had. I remember my first final for calculus. I called my dad and I was like, I'm so nervous. And I like also all A's like my whole like childhood. And so I got 1B my whole life. And I remember my mom picking me up and I said, please don't tell dad. Like I got an 89. And I was like, really? Couldn't have just given me a 90. And so in my head, I'm thinking like everything I do, I have to treat like the Olympics. I have to win, you know. And I'm like, okay, no, get out of that mentality. And my dad said, what are you nervous about? And I was like, I don't know, that I'm just not going to do well. And he was like, were you nervous that you weren't going to do well at the Olympics? And I was like, no. And he was like, if you could win the Olympics, I think you're going to be okay at this calculus final. And like hearing him say that too, like if my mom said, I'd be like, thanks mom, I love you. Like, you know, but like my dad is like, we're very similar. And so hearing him say that, like gave me the confidence that I kind of needed. And so yeah, graduated in 3.5 years. And my advisor was like, I would never approve anybody taking 22 credits in one semester, but I had to graduate like right before the Rio Olympics because I was going to work, for NBC then. And so it was a, all like so many transitional moments all happening at the same time. But I feel like it allowed me to be uncomfortable. And it allowed me to grow and it allowed me to figure out who Nastia was without Nastia Liukin, the Olympic gymnast. And I think that's what I struggled with for so long of what are my passions? What do I even like without gymnastics. Like it felt like even though it was on my terms, it felt like something was taken away from me. And I think like finding a replacement was something that I was so like concerned about, because I was trying to find something that gave me that fulfillment, like that training 7 hours a day, 6 days a week did. And like, let me tell you, nothing will make you feel like that. And so when I finally realized, you know, not like you don't have to replace it. You can still find something that you're passionate about and that, you know, you have goals. And I think for me, I always had that long-term goal of winning the Olympics. So it felt like every goal I made had to literally be like winning the Olympics. And I realized it doesn't have to be that way. It can be smaller goals. It can be daily goals. It can be just showing up, you know, if you're going through it. And so, yeah, I feel like the second kind of chapter of my life was like the biggest in terms of growth.
When I think about the Olympics, gymnastics is my favorite sport of the Olympics, but then I also think about the attention that you bring to it personally. You talked about how your teammate Simone was texting you about your outfit. I think a lot of people were texting about your outfits as you kind of sat there commentating and participating and drawing attention to your team.
Which,
and your
by
teammates.
the way, was never like people go back and forth on like, she's trying to take attention. I'm like, I'm on TV for 23 seconds. Like, literally, but I think it was social, you know, obviously. And I had to wear a unisex polo for my first 7 years. And so finally, contract after contract after contract, we finally convinced them to let me wear my own clothes, which felt very freeing. And I always just felt, it's like if you didn't like your leotard at the Olympics, and like, it is like a reflection of your confidence and how you feel. And so I try to always say like, I don't even like the way I look in this. How do you expect me to like be confident about, you know, just being here and trying to do this job? And so it's not necessarily about, I guess, drawing attention, even though it did. And in my perspective, it's all views are good for ratings, right? For TV. And so, yeah, but it was fun for me because I felt there was purpose behind every single look, in the sense of, you know, for the women's team finals, I hunted down, it was also the middle of COVID. And so we weren't allowed to leave our rooms unless we were going to the venue for work. But I hunted down this red Dior dress in Tokyo, and I wanted to wear red because 8 teams qualified to the women's team finals. And out of all those 8 teams, every single country had red in their flag. So we're not necessarily, like, we're not supposed to say like, oh, we are going to, like USA, like you have to be very neutral. And so, you know, I didn't want to represent just like wear red, white, and blue or something. And so, yeah, I wanted it to be represent all the countries. So it just became like a fun thing for me to, do, I guess.
Well, you launched your LTK in 2016, and it was fun to see over these past few months, like, what are people now buying from you? Your posting has only continued to ramp. And so the content that you're creating for this community is actually up 60% just this year.
Oh, wow.
So you continue to be excellent.
Thank you.
Pour into your community.
Did you know those words of affirmation?
You know, it was fun to see, like, okay, I always think of you wearing your wide leg pants. Those actually for Abercrombie are like some of your top.
And that was in January, like not a summer. Yeah.
They love the pant.
Yeah.
The basic tank, the high trust on.
In the all the Olympic stuff. Like we were saying, like, so Abercrombie, PacSun just launched. There's a bunch of different brands now because I guess I should like actually know the legality and the terms of this, but I think the licensing deal it's very different now than it was even at the last Olympics, where to get the rights to the 5 rings was like next to impossible. You had to be like one of like the Fortune 500, like a Coca-Cola or whatever. And so it's been like, for me, I remember growing up, like they didn't even sell Olympics. Like the only way you could get it is if you made the Olympic team. And so it was like, when you make the Olympic team, yeah, competing at the Olympics is incredible, winning. But one of the like most fun parts is going through processing, and you literally get like a shopping cart and like this huge warehouse, and they're like, what size? And you just go around the entire thing, like like from like head to toe. And it's just like, as a teenager too, it's like the cool, I mean, I guess at any age it's pretty cool. And so now, you know, not being on that side of it, you still feel like, it's fun, and you like get to still feel part of it, I guess.
So Abercrombie has these amazing vintage.
Yeah,
like, I think you had one on this morning.
Yeah, the sweatshirt. Yeah, the LA 2020. Oh, sorry, no, 1984. The next Olympics are in LA.
They're very cool. The price point is very great as well.
And they're pinned to the top of your shop. I think that's why too. Like it's stylish, and like they're always on a good sale too.
So I'm curious because you have offline communities, you have online communities. With your online, I guess starting there, you're across multiple social media platforms. You have your LTK. Like, how do you think about each one of those communities and what you're giving to each of them?
So I like to think about it because I try to relate everything to gymnastics, whether that's good or bad. It's basically like the all-around competition at the Olympics. You have to do all 4 of the events, and you have to be somewhat equally good at all 4 to combine your 4 scores to win the all-around. So you think about the all-around like your brand. And then you think about the events, vault, bars, beam, and floor, like different verticals. So there's, Instagram, TikTok, LTK, blog, whatever, YouTube. And so putting in equal amounts of time to each of those platforms is literally like training for the Olympics on all 4 of the events. And if you really do not like one, vault for me, I hated to run. So that was my first problem. And I would have to spend a lot more time on vault to get better at it. So it's the same on the different platforms, or at least that's the way I like to treat it. But then still putting in, a good amount of time to even the things that you're good at to become even better. So I don't know. I just think that it's balance, and sometimes balance is coming from a gymnast, I guess, maybe ironic, but one of my biggest mentors was Kobe, and I remember him telling me, like, life is like the infinite balance beam, and you just have to be so aware of where you are. If work is great, then maybe your personal life, family, whatever is shit. And he's like, and if that is great, then work is shit. And I remember thinking, that's so true. I've tried my whole life to have everything be so perfectly balanced. And sometimes that's not attainable. And so just being able to be aware of where to put in more time, effort, energy is all you can expect from yourself. And that means just showing up, doing your best, and being just slightly better than you were the day before.
Well, all of that has resulted in some really cool collabs for you both. I want to talk in a minute about what you're going to be doing at the Olympics, but even right now, just for the populations that are following you, and they're in the active category, but not necessarily specific to gymnastics. Can you tell us about some of those?
Well, I have a few coming up, and both of them are here in this room, so I'm not going to be the one to announce them, but stay tuned.
Permission granted, though.
Yeah, but not me. You guys can. But I think, to your point, yes, and I think even though I'm trying to figure out how to word it without wording it, but basically it's Olympic themed, I guess. And so I think for me, purpose is so important. So it has to make sense. And, I've always been super, start to finish, even just coming up with the ideas to bringing, from design standpoints to bringing it to life to then shooting a campaign, everything has a purpose, everything has a meaning. And it also has to feel I feel the word authentic is so overly used, but it just has to feel I don't want to ever receive not ever receive from a brand, but if something that I'm super passionate about, I don't want to have to think what a talking point might be from that brand. I want it to come I love this brand so much that yes, of course, certain deliverables you have to know, if it's a sale, whatever. But I think in terms of the brand as a whole, I want to feel I'm part of the team, not that I'm just, along the way for a collab and moving along. And I think those are the most successful ones. Yes, of course, selling out is incredible, but I think feeling you are actually part of the team in the process makes you feel more invested in it in general. And, and then you become invested in the brand, even when your club's not, when it's over and you've moved on or whatever. And that, I've been I'm like trying to say it without saying it. Been like lifelong fan of like so many, pretty much all the brands that I've worked with before I ever actually worked with them, and I think that's like so important because yeah, it is. So I'm going to not talk about the brands anymore because I'm like now not able to speak proper English.
We'll do a hot takes on the podcast and go through that. With Paris, of course, the Olympics are coming up.
Yes.
Again, I see you as kind of like the magnet, especially for the sport, for fashion. It's in the fashion capital of the world.
Paris, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing this season.
I'm so excited. I think that what I realized like the last, especially since the Tokyo Olympics and everything, it became somewhat of a big eye-opening experience in Olympic Games for, I think, so many, but obviously for Simone herself. But being on the other side of it and having to almost like share her story without, like she wasn't quite sharing it yet. And
would you catch us up on Simone in case anyone's
sorry. So she's obviously training again, just won her 9th national title. And it's, I remember when she was deciding if she wanted to go back or not. And she called me and said, like, do you regret like finishing, like falling on your face essentially? And I was like, I personally don't. Like, do I wish it would have ended different and like I had gone to a second Olympics? Absolutely. Like, who wouldn't want to do that, especially when you put in all the time and energy? But for me personally, I was ready to move on. Like, I didn't feel like I wanted to keep going to prove anything to myself. Like, forget everybody else for a second, for yourself. Like, can you go on in life and like live your life knowing like you did everything that you wanted to do? And she was like, I don't think I can do that yet. And I think for her, she didn't want the last time that she was on that Olympic stage to be remembered as that, even though like she still came back and like won a medal in beam and going through what she went through. So we call it the twisties. So basically, if anyone's familiar with golf, I think it's called the yips or something. I don't know. And then there's something in baseball similar. But basically, it's like when your mind and your body are not aligned and your body, like you're supposed to be doing one skill and your mind is just like telling you to do another skill, and it becomes super dangerous, especially the skills that she's doing, like very, very dangerous. And so, every single gymnast, I guarantee you, if not, like 99.9% have gone through it. It's just, I don't know anybody else that has gone through it at the Olympic Games. And it makes sense because it's all a mental thing, right? And so when you think about the amount of pressure and the expectations that she faced at the last Olympic Games, like the amount of dollars that MVC put into just her and the amount of sponsors and brands that put like just focused on her, well, no wonder that like her mental health kind of crumbled in the biggest moment. And so I think it was eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people and for athletes everywhere to start, speaking and actually putting their mental health first. And so that was, it was something in the past that was just kind of like, you don't really talk about it. That's how it was. You just push through it. It's like, don't let anyone like see your struggles. And I think her, doing so on the biggest stage and being the biggest star of the games and actually thinking about herself and her mental health first was a pretty like huge moment in sports. And I think just like in the world. So yeah, I think that that's something that still needs to be like talked about more. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it. And then doing like, again, like I hate when people say like, I can't wait to tell you about this, but I can't tell you now. But yeah, it's like a weird timing, I guess. But in the fashion sense too, going to be doing some fun stuff there as well. So
mental health, fashion, Olympics, all this summer in Paris. Okay, last question. Well, two questions. On the trend side, so we see the top athletes in the entire world are together at once across every single sport. And this is a big moment for active. But on the back of this, we will see trends rolling out. It will be predictive for the next, I think, 4 years of what top athletes are doing, looking like in their both professional life and their personal life. What do you predict from a trend perspective coming out of Paris?
First of all, that was like, it's so funny because that was the last thing I was thinking about at the Olympics. Like, I look back and I'm like, these girls are getting their makeup done. Like, I think I got, like, I had, like, CoverGirl was one of my sponsors, and I think I had, like, a little CoverGirl palette, and I just was like, eyeshadow, and I called it a day. And, like, now they have, like, nails that are, you know, that's the whole thing that they do, like, their country, like, patriotic nails, red lipstick. Like, even just on a normal day, I'm like, red lipstick, that seems like a lot to have to remember to bring your touch-up with you to an event or something. And they're literally competing at the Olympics with red lipstick on. So I love it. Like, I think it's, like, I'm a big theme person. My birthday's the day before Halloween, so that's kind of why. But I think, like, again, it's like showing up, right? And it's like showing up, like, from head to toe, essentially. So I'm excited. I think looking back at my Olympics, we thought our leotards were sparkly with, like, a few crystals, and now what they do is, like, just insane. So I'm excited to see their leotards, and I think it's just, you don't really get to pick your leotards when you're, you know, representing your country, but you definitely, yeah, you get to kind of have a say in, like, which ones you wear as a team and individually. So I'm excited. In terms of trends, I mean, I don't know, around the summer, because, like, the 4th of July, I think, like, patriotic and, like, USA is always front and center, and especially every 4 years at the Olympics. And then obviously the excitement of the next Summer Olympics being here in LA is incredible. So I'm really
You've already been repping those shirts.
What's that?
You've already been repping those shirts.
See?
Okay, last question is just advice for digital community building. You have over 1 million followers on social media and across platforms. This is something where people are obviously gravitating towards you. They're very actively engaged and they're following you platform to platform.
I think remembering your why is important. I think, you know, so often we can get stuck in, like, the daily routine. And, you know, for me, when I was training, it was very similar. So remembering in the times of those bad days where you want to quit and you don't quit on a bad day, like, how do you get through that bad day? It's remembering why. Why did you start this? You know, what is your goal? And it's also okay to, at times, reevaluate that a little bit, because it doesn't make you a failure if you have a career change or you want to change, you know, your path or your, you know, whatever it is. I think remembering your why and truly staying, sounds so cliche, but staying true to who you are. Because I think we see what success looks like, you know, for somebody else, and it's easy to want to just go follow that, right? So yeah, sure, like, you can learn from it, and I think, like, we all do, but I think remembering your why and remembering to stay true to who you are while also, you know, learning from others. But I think that's when you're most fulfilled. And I think, like, that's something maybe that we all, like, I would like to think, like, live our lives, like, trying to, you know, be fulfilled in whatever it is that we do and every single aspect of our life.
Nastia, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
You can follow Nastia on LTK at Nastia Liukin, same across social media platforms. Check out her Nastia Liukin cup, and we can't wait to watch you at the Paris.
Thank you.
Amber, what an episode. Excited to get into your hot takes and talk about some of the things that you and Nastia got into. You spoke on advice for digital community building. What are your best tips for those who want to build an engaged community online, especially now when it's more challenging than ever?
So I often talk about taking a step back and taking, like, a much higher level view, like, kind of abstract yourself out of your business and make a plan before you jump in and just hit go, right? I wanted to bring in this business exercise that I actually shared with a woman in our town. So here's the context. She actually is a cosmetologist. She just graduated from cosmetology school, and she was asking me for business advice. And so I actually wrote her a 7-question business exercise that she could do on her own time. I'm going to screenshot this. It's in my notes. I'm going to go ahead and share it out to my LTK, but I want to go ahead and read it because I think this applies to anyone in any business, including creators. And it's so worth taking the time to, I'm going to call it, like, fill out this worksheet, because then it will answer so many questions for you about, like, where you should build community, how you're going to do it. These bigger questions that we're asking, we got to first start with kind of like the core of your business. So here are these 7 questions that I asked her to write down. 1, I said, what problem are you solving for customers? 2, who is your customer? 3, where do you provide services? For her, this was a physical location. But for creators, this is truly, where is your community? Where is your home? Where are you bringing people back to? 4, what services do you provide? 5, how will customers know that you exist? For creators, I talk a lot about on-ramps. So you think about TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, newsletters, but there's, by the way, way more creative ways than just those that are sitting in front of you that are on-ramps to your business. So when I ask the question, how will customers know that you exist? This is what I'm talking about. It's like, where are you marketing yourself? Number 6, I said, how will they book an appointment? But this is really sort of like, how will they reach you, or how will they kind of like achieve the goal of receiving your services? And then last, what makes you the best person for the job? So again, I'm going to screenshot this. I'll put it in my LTK. I have a whole podcast section there, but I really think that this business exercise just applies to any business, and it'll give you such clarity on who it is you're reaching, how then you can reach them, what it is they're going to get from you. Like, this is a business plan in a box. I'm super excited to share this.
How exciting. What a great resource for our creators and really for anybody who's trying to reach people online. I also wanted to dive a bit into a quote that you mentioned from Marcus. He said, don't give people rent space in your mind. And I think as a creator, as a mom, as just a person growing up in the digital society, this is something that people deal with. And I'd love for you to dive in a little bit more about what it means to you and any other context you want to share.
Yeah. So the quote about don't give people rent-free space in your mind, this is like a funny meme. You see it online and it's like, this is now living rent-free in my mind. Like, people sort of make a joke about it, but things do live rent-free in our mind. And I always think about my mind as like, I have a certain bandwidth, or like I have a certain number of tabs that can be open. And it's just in the same way as I talk about saying yes to one thing is saying no to another. If there's something, festering or that's living rent free in your mind that shouldn't be, it is taking up space for productivity. I was researching bitterness, and I found that bitterness is really sort of like, leads to anger. And this sort of goes through, and by the way, bitterness and anger can actually make you sick. And so someone was telling me the other day about how they were super angry with someone. They were just totally done with them. They were completely fed up. They were cutting this person out of their life. They had blocked him on their phone. And my advice to them was, this might be more hurtful to you than it is to them, because this person's now living rent free in your mind. You have this anger that's built up. This is huge for your mental health. This is biblical stuff, like to not go to bed with having a conflict with somebody. So trying to move through conflict or find resolution or find peace can be so helpful. There are, of course, books and things that you can read to do this. But there are, I think about online, there's stuff like Spring Health, for example, that you can book an online appointment with someone to actually talk through some of these things. I've found that to be very, very helpful. But the rent-free thing, it's funny and it's a great meme. But I think that when it is something that's negative in your life, it's really just taking up space that could be productive. And I would encourage you to find ways to move through that and not to go to bed angry.
Yeah. And taking it a step further for creators or anyone online, what do you think when they say they're nervous of what people might think of them if they post too often, or if they share something a certain way, or that people may judge them because they share their outfits all the time? Do you have any feelings on that?
Well, I go back to that business plan that I just shared. And if the value that you're creating people is helping them to find maybe outfits in a certain category or for a certain body type or in a certain region in this outfit example that you gave, then that's your mission. That's what you're doing. That's the value you provide. So you shouldn't feel bad about it. I think one of the first things is just setting up guardrails for what you publish. I think that business plan that kind of the template that I just shared, will be really helpful, but setting up guardrails about what you will and what you will not talk about. For me, I try to focus on things that give people value. I try to focus on happiness and helpfulness, things that bring us together, not things that divide us. I have almost always found that over any era in life, political commentary doesn't age well. I mean, think back to like World War I, World War II. Think about even like 20 years ago. I'm looking like 2016, things were just different. They're changing so rapidly. And so what was acceptable at these times, and first of all, you might have changed your mind over time, but what was trending or popular might not age well. And so I would encourage you to focus on just having a high integrity business and focusing on the value that you can provide for people, and the things that you share. Make sure that you think that you're going to feel good long term. If this pops back up in 20 years as like sort of a reminder post, or someone goes searching for you, are you going to feel good about that? I think if you're focusing on what the service you provide, the value that you provide to those customers, and you're focusing on really making them successful, you can't go wrong.
Absolutely. Boundaries and the archive button can really be a good friend sometimes. Let's jump in a little bit to Olympic fashion trends. We know we're going to see things. We already see on LTK that there are certain items trending, specifically some things that Nastia has on her shop. Would love for you to dive into some of those LTK insights.
So what's so cool about Nastia is, of course, we talked about how she was the all-around gold medalist, 2008 Beijing. We are now in 2024. Nastia has only leaned more and more into her digital community. So she's another example of someone who had a moment of fame. And I actually, by the way, think about 2008. This was pre-social media. So Nastia gained fame at a time where like you couldn't really harness it online the way that you can today. Over these years, she has built up her online presence far post the Olympics, by the way, and then has now brought people home to her LTK. She's actually increased her posting on LTK by 66% year to date. She's helping people to find more things they love. They have higher engagement with her. Some of the things that I really love from her are actually her Summer Olympics stuff. So there's a lot actually from Abercrombie Olympics vintage collection. There's like a Sunday crew, they call it, that is a top seller for her. It's absolutely adorable. They have the best vintage looking stuff, by the way. But people go to Nastia for more than that too. Of course, she sells a ton of Olympic gear right now, but business casual, everything from that to even like perfume. They love her just excitement, her vigor for life. There's so many things that she's posting nonstop. I actually did an interview with Nastia a couple of years ago. You can find it on YouTube. You can like see us live actually in the LTK office, and get to know her a little bit better. But I find her to be very likable, very passionate, very purposeful, and she's doing wonderful. And I think that she's just now launching a collection with pickleball sports. She's got something going with APL, the shoe line. Like I said, she's on the ground for LTK at the Olympics in Paris. So there's a lot of great things happening for her. And again, this is someone who had a moment of fame and then harnessed it to build a community and continue to nurture it. And even though she's not on the floor, she's finding ways to stay relevant and helpful for this community who just really loves what she's doing.
Yes, I know we're all excited to see what she's going to wear on the ground. And it's so cool that LTK provides a space where we can shop from these inspirational figures, athletes, celebrities, and even everyday people who have great fashion or home sense. Okay, Amber, let's dive a little bit into LTK DM. This is hot off the press. All creators have it on LTK. It's a totally free tool. Tell us about it.
I love launching stuff like this. The first time that we did this, something like this in this category was back in 2013 when we actually launched the LIKEtoKNOW.it newsletter service. So raise your hand in your car if you were part of that service, and thank you for being early. So at that time, you could actually register for LIKEtoKNOW.it, and whenever you hit like on one of our LTK creators' posts on Instagram, we would send you an email newsletter within about 7 minutes that had that post with all the shoppable information as tagged by that creator. We then in 2017 launched the screenshot technology. So that took you, elevated out of any one particular platform. You could screenshot LTK content anywhere, wherever you were. That was, by the way, when Snapchat was becoming big. We were seeing more and more platforms that were walled gardens. You couldn't click out, easily get out. We want to make sure that whatever you see from our creators, from that moment of discovery to the moment it lands on your doorstep, that we are shortening and tightening that cycle. We know you have other things to be doing. And so we've been focused on that for a long period of time now. So this is now really the third innovation in that category, LTK DM. So for our creators, they'll be telling you can actually just say the word shop on their reels or on their in-feed post on Instagram. And immediately you'll get a DM to your inbox with exactly that post and what to shop. So we've invested quite a bit in this category. We actually have a family of patents that pertain to this exact category and around automation and messaging. This is something that we take really seriously. We invest a lot in, that we protect this technology that we have. And again, the whole point and the value, as a creator, I want to be providing the very best service to my followers. It's part of building a community. Like I want to have, think about it, it's like the best hotel, the fastest car. Like I want to have the best thing. And if this helps you to find the things that you love from me faster, I want to provide it. And of course, LTK is providing it to every single LTK creator for free. We've seen in our testing that this can actually drive up the way that people are finding products and actually purchasing them by 60%. So your followers they're finding more, they're loving more. And I'm excited that this is now available to every single creator in the Creator app for free. And as a brand, you should be excited about this. We really want our creators to be a brand's tech-enabled power partner. That's how we invest behind them. So when they're creating content, it's not just throwing it to the wind and hoping that the customer can come find you. We're connecting the dots. And so this is a win for everyone in our community. We're really excited about this product.
It's amazing. And the press coverage has been insane. I know we saw it in TechCrunch and quite a few other newsworthy sources have been reporting on it. So creators are just thrilled, and so is all of the tech world.
Well, it's a really strong innovation. Like I said, it's the third really discrete tech within this sort of family of patents that we have. And we're excited to be driving innovation in this space. Of course, the tech world loved it and was excited about it. It was going off on LinkedIn. I think it's been in probably about 10 different publications by this point. But most importantly, customers love it and they're thanking us for it. And that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. And then finally, we have to talk about summer sales. The time of the year is here when a bunch of big brands, I mean, Nordstrom, Amazon, Target, Walmart, to name a few, are ramping up for their big summer sales. It's a huge moment for shoppers to score some really great deals. And a lot of them, of course, are shopping through creators. So I want to know what is on your shopping list.
Yeah. So behind the scenes, if you're curious how creators are talking about all of these products, they're actually getting previews of what's going on sale. They're going and buying these products. They're testing them out. They're seeing what's worth it. They're seeing what's not. And they are already started creating content about these sales now. So when you see something from these brands that have these big sales, save it down in the LTK app because we're sending you push notifications when that price drops. When it's been restocked, you're now getting notified. You can save an entire collection so that on the day, for example, Target, Amazon, Walmart, any of these summer sales that are like these huge events, you have it all ready and saved by the time that you want it. So I think for, shoppers, having the LTK app and being able to save products is just more valuable than ever because of those price drops, the restocks, all of that type of information where you don't have to track it down. So if you see something in those categories, if you're not buying it now, go ahead and save it so you're ready when the day comes. My approach to summer sale shopping is the things that I need and want and that, I've like planned out for my family. And I think that's why I love the favoriting so much is like, these are things I've thought a lot about. Like they are the actual thing that I want. It's not just like happening on a whim. Of course, I'm researching from our creators. That's where I'm finding pretty much everything that I'm buying these days. But it's a really thoughtful and purposeful purchase. And I know that because I've had time to save it, sit on it, think about it, and it's going to provide value to my family and fit in my home.
That's great. What a great approach. It's such an exciting time. And thanks so much, Amber. We talked about some really great things today, and I always love hearing your insight.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Stephanie. You can listen to More to Say on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and I'd love to hear from you. Share your comments and questions in the reviews section, or you can reach me at Amber Vinsbox on LTK, Instagram, or LinkedIn.